Welcome back, folks, to the 23rd night on Uncle Three's Ghost Storytelling channel. Tonight, we've got another episode about Thuan Kieu Plaza, a place Uncle Three confidently calls one of Vietnam's top haunted spots. These are a series of stories that have happened to people, and Uncle Three will tell them chapter by chapter. So, our first story tonight comes from a retired gangster. Uncle Three was searching for stories about Thuan Kieu Plaza when he met an older gentleman who had lived a tough life, fighting and protecting on the streets. But the main character of this first story isn't him, it's his old boss. This boss lived in apartment 808 on the 8th floor of Block C in Thuan Kieu Plaza, and these events happened around the year 2000. The boss, an influential gang leader who ran protection rackets for entertainment venues, bought this apartment. Business was booming, and he had many loyal followers, including the storyteller, who was one of his closest confidants. That's how he knew this eerie tale to share with Uncle Three. This boss was a lone wolf. He didn't have a wife and didn't want one. He bought the apartment to live by himself, finding high-rise buildings special because they offered quiet and external protection. As a man of the underworld, he was always vulnerable and couldn't rely on his subordinates to guard him constantly. Now, this boss was a very cautious and superstitious man. When he bought the apartment, he consulted many fortune tellers, not just one. He'd consult a different one each month, afraid that if he stuck with the same one, they'd figure out his fate or his plans and harm him. For truly major decisions, though, he'd consult every fortune teller he knew, cross-referencing their predictions. If they all agreed, he'd follow their advice. If there were any doubt, he'd question it. When he decided to buy the apartment at Thuan Kieu Plaza, he asked all his trusted fortune tellers. They all said it was a fantastic purchase, a sure bet for explosive real estate investment. However, there was one, and only one, fortune teller who strongly advised against it. He warned that if the boss bought it, he would lose his life because the apartment and the entire Thuan Kieu area were overflowing with incredibly negative energy. But the boss didn't listen. Since everyone else said it was fine, he went with the majority and bought the apartment. Unlike most gangsters who would worship Guan Yu, this boss had a different kind of devotion. He worshipped a black dragon statue that had been with him for a very long time. He would always burn incense and pray to this black dragon before any business venture. Just a week after moving into the apartment, his luck turned sour. His entertainment venues started getting raided by the police, shutting down his operations. So, he decided to expand his territory into a neighboring district, a move that would undoubtedly involve a lot of violent clashes. Before this significant move, he again went to consult his fortune tellers, bringing along the storyteller. It was a vast and dangerous undertaking, leading his men into a fight in Kuchi. When he consulted all his trusted advisors, almost all of them said the territory war would go smoothly and be a great success. But then there was that one fortune teller, the same one who had warned him against buying the Thuan Kieu Plaza apartment. He again advised against the expansion. "Look," he said, "I'm going to give you a statue. Place it next to that black dragon, your spirit beast. If it accepts it, if the statue is still normal tomorrow morning, then go ahead and fight for your territory. But if anything happens to my statue, don't even step a single toe out of your house." The statue the fortune teller gave the boss was shaped like a little child. Before the boss left, the old man added a chilling prophecy. "But I'm warning you, this could be the last time you ever exist in this world if you still decide to invade that territory." The boss was furious when he heard this. His gangster blood boiled. He thought, "What's he talking about? My men are strong and my influence is huge. What could possibly go wrong? All the other fortune tellers said it's fine. Only this one is saying no." But despite his anger, the boss was a man of honor and integrity. He didn't lose his temper. He thanked the fortune teller and took the statue home. That night, he placed the child statue next to his black dragon. He lit 3 incense sticks and prayed, asking if his plan to take over the new territory would be successful and if the dragon would bless him. He went to sleep, and the next morning, the day he was supposed to go and take over the territory, he woke up. He saw that his black dragon spirit beast was perfectly normal. But the child statue that the fortune teller had given him had fallen to the ground and was shattered into pieces. He was annoyed, thinking it was just the wind or a cat that had knocked it over. He didn't even consider it a supernatural event at that moment. His mind felt like it was consumed by a frenzy, as if someone was fueling his rage. So he gathered his men and headed to the neighboring district to seize the territory. The very next morning, the entire Saigon underworld knew the news. The boss was brutally dismembered in that district. When the police investigated, they found his body torn apart, one arm severed, half his face slashed, and his intestines spilled out. The storyteller and other subordinates were lucky. They only sustained minor injuries. With their leader gone, like a snake losing its head, the gang immediately disbanded. When the police went to his apartment to collect evidence, they found the shattered statue still on the floor, exactly as it had fallen earlier that morning. What sent shivers down everyone's spines was that the shattered child statue perfectly mirrored the boss's gruesome death. The statue's arm was broken and half its face was smashed, just like the boss's body. And from that day on, another terrifying rumor spread around Thuan Kieu Plaza. This chilling coincidence only made Thuan Kieu Plaza even more haunted. Now, let's move on to our second story tonight, which is also about Thuan Kieu Plaza. This one is about a young woman named Lynn. She was a wealthy Chinese-Vietnamese girl from Hong Kong who came to Vietnam to learn the ropes of Chinese business here. Lynn bought an apartment in Thuan Kieu Plaza. Having lived in Hong Kong since childhood, Lynn found the price of an apartment in Vietnam, along with the lower cost of living, to be incredibly reasonable. So she chose Vietnam as her new home. When she first arrived, she had a landline installed and called her family in Hong Kong very frequently to update them on her life. For the first week, Lynn often complained about feeling lonely, struggling to adapt, and not understanding the local business ways, which were different from Hong Kong. But after that first week, she stopped calling her family. When her parents called her, Lynn answered and said she was now pleased because she had made a very close friend, also Chinese-Vietnamese. She even told her parents there seemed to be a special connection between her and this new friend, as they were very similar. Her mother was thrilled that her daughter had found a compatriot friend in a foreign land. Gradually, Lynn called Hong Kong less and less, as if she was settling into her new life. But then, one day, people living in the same block at Thuan Kieu Plaza started noticing something strange. Lynn would always go out alone, but sometimes they'd see herself talking to someone right beside her, even though no one else was there. In the 2000s, before Bluetooth headsets were ordinary, people would think someone talking to themselves was crazy. Lynn would also go to the restaurants downstairs in Thuan Kieu Plaza, and she'd always order 2 bowls and 2 portions of food, but no one ever saw anyone eating with her. At night, from her apartment, people would hear Lynn talking, laughing and joking a lot. She laughed and joked more and more inside her apartment, and neighbors just couldn't understand who she was talking to or laughing with. Then, after almost 2 months, Lynn's parents couldn't reach her at all. So they decided to fly from Hong Kong to Vietnam to see their daughter. When they arrived, they couldn't get up to Lynn's apartment because the security at Thuan Kieu Plaza was stringent back then. Strangers weren't allowed into the residential areas unless a resident came down to greet them. The parents tried to explain, but they weren't fluent in Vietnamese. Luckily, they met some fellow Chinese who understood their language. After explaining, the parents showed a family photo to the security guards. The security guards confirmed that Lynn did live there, but they hadn't seen her come down from a room in a while. They also confirmed that every night during their patrols, they heard laughter from Lynn's room, so she must still be up there. They recognized her immediately from the photo for 2 simple reasons. First, as Uncle Three mentioned, Lynn wasn't acting normally. Her muttering and talking to herself were quite peculiar, so the guards had noticed her. Second, Thuan Kieu Plaza itself was already known for many strange and ghostly incidents at that time, which directly involved these very security guards. A story Uncle Three will tell later. So, because of these 2 reasons, the security guards paid special attention to Lynn. After confirming Lynn was indeed their daughter, the security guards led the parents upstairs to knock on Lynn's door. They hit many times, but no one answered. As the security guards were radioing the building management about the situation, they suddenly saw smoke billowing from under the door. Fearing a fire, they immediately asked for permission to break down the door. When they broke in, they found Lynn. She was burned to death. The police were immediately called. When the police arrived and examined the scene, they found her body completely charred. But here's the kicker. On the bathroom wall, there was a charcoal imprint of another girl. Witnesses described it as if Lynn's burned body had been pressed against the wall, leaving her silhouette. People wondered why there was a burnt imprint on the bathroom wall, but Lynn's body was found in the living room. If she were burning, wouldn't she try to use the water in the bathroom to put out the flames? Why would she crawl out to the living room? And do you know what was the most terrifying thing? They couldn't find the cause of the fire, and absolutely nothing else in the apartment was burned except Lynn herself. Back with Lynn's distraught parents, they cried out upon seeing their daughter's remains. Neighbors from that floor gathered around, curious. Another chilling detail. The police forensics determined Lynn had died of burns less than a day ago. Yet, the neighbors hadn't heard any screams or smelled any burning in the past day or 2. But based on the examination, Lynn must have been burning for at least several hours, as her body was charred entirely, with no flesh left, almost reduced to ashes. At that point, a few people told Lynn's parents that perhaps she had gone into the toilet when she caught fire, trying to use water to extinguish the flames. Maybe she pressed herself against the wall to put out the fire, and then, overcome by the heat, she stumbled and collapsed in the living room, dying there. When Lynn's parents regained their composure, her father rushed into the bathroom. What he saw made him recoil in horror. It was then that the true horror unfolded. The parents declared that the charcoal figure on the wall was not their daughter. It wasn't Lynn pressing herself against the wall as the neighbors had guessed. Instead, it was the image of Lynn's twin sister, who had died years ago. They believed her spirit had returned to claim Lynn, to take her with her. The imprint was the exact same height and shape as their daughter, but it was missing one arm. The parents immediately knew it was their long-lost twin daughter. Years ago, when they were in Hong Kong, they had twin girls, but one of them died prematurely in the womb. When the doctors removed the fetus, they accidentally severed one of its arms. Perhaps the spirit of that twin, filled with bitter resentment, had returned to burn her sister alive. After this revelation, everyone re-evaluated Lynn's abnormal behavior during the time she lived alone. Her talking to herself at night and in the elevator was indeed her communicating with someone. She would laugh and joke so freely as if she were talking to a real person. It turned out that person was her deceased twin sister. This story is one of many Uncle Three heard from people living in Thuan Kieu Plaza. When Uncle Three heard it, he wondered, why didn't the twin sister kill Lynn when they were little, or when they were still in Hong Kong? Why wait until she came to Vietnam? The person who told the story to Uncle Three explained, perhaps in Hong Kong, Lynn's family home had protective deities or ancestral spirits safeguarding her. But when she came here, those protections were gone. Perhaps it was simply because this is Thuan Kieu Plaza, a place like the gate of hell. Uncle Three got shivers down his spine listening to this story. So many abnormal things happen at Thuan Kieu Plaza, but they are never publicly revealed. Why? Because at that time, this place was a symbol of prosperity, and if such information leaked out, who would dare to live there? And that concludes the 23rd night of chilling ghost stories at Thuan Kieu Plaza. We'll see you on the 24th night if you're brave enough to hear even more terrifying tales from this place.